I never in my wildest dreams thought I would have wanted a fourth movie featuring Broly, yet here we are after the release of Dragon Ball Super Broly, and I want more. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to my spoiler talk for Dragon Ball Super Broly. If you're here for my spoiler-free review, glad to have you all here, but if you haven't seen that video yet, I highly recommend it so you can get more context on my feelings throughout this video. But just to summarize my thoughts from the spoiler-free review, this film is no doubt my favorite Dragon Ball movie thus far, and every single aspect about it resonated with me very greatly. I loved this version of Broly as a character as he was expanded upon in new and innovative ways, but there were a few flaws that came about from the film to balance out the revamped Broly. So to discuss spoilers about the film, I figured it would be a good idea for you to join me as I talk about events from the film in the order that they happen in the movie, so without any further ado, let's hop right into this breakdown and I'll talk about spoilers as I go. I think it was a very smart move for this movie to spend the first 20 minutes in the past. I think the flow of the movie would have been interrupted if it began in present day and constantly flashed back to the past just so we could learn more about Paragus and Broly as characters. As a longtime Dragon Ball fan, I thought it was really cool seeing specific characters from earlier in the franchise arrive on planet Vegeta alongside Frieza. Zarbon, Dodoria, the Ginyu Force, and most importantly, King Cold all accompany Frieza as King Cold officially states that he's retiring from the Cold Force, only to instate Frieza as the new ruler of the Saiyans and all of his men, with the Cold Force being given the new creative name of the Frieza Force. There's not a whole bunch of Frieza scenes towards the beginning of the movie, but while we're talking about him, Frieza was very merciless in this movie. He acted more brutal in this movie than I've seen him in quite some time, and I'm not talking about him torturing anyone like he did in the Tournament of Power. He killed a whole lot of people throughout the film and quickly glossed over each death like it was nothing. That's the Frieza that I know. I thought the introduction of the Scouters and Frieza displaying their capabilities by shooting Saiyans in King Vegeta's palace who had weapons trained on him was a very cool sequence that set him up as a ruler to be wary of. Now, the majority of the story set in the past focuses on Paragus and his dispute with King Vegeta. We see that King Vegeta is very proud of his son, Vegeta the Fourth, and the latent battle power within him. However, upon learning that Paragus' son Broly has a power that far exceeds his son, he gets a bit jealous and plans on sending him away from the rest of his people. Now, personally, I prefer the idea of the original Broly film where King Vegeta felt threatened that Broly could overthrow him, and thus has him set to be executed. But I think the sequence in this film did a great job at showing King Vegeta's jealousy over Broly's power, and how he could still potentially be a threat, but the major importance to King Vegeta was him wanting Vegeta to be the strongest Saiyan. I think it's really interesting how the Broly we see in this film became an entirely different character when compared to his non-canon counterpart simply because King Vegeta gave him an opportunity to live elsewhere rather than executing him on the spot. It was that simple act of letting him live that diverged the path that the two different Brolys went down, and even though I liked the execution from the original Broly movie, I think the outcome of this character benefited from the change of him being spared. After learning of his son's pod being sent to planet Vampa, a planet with harsh living conditions, Paragus steals a spaceship and quickly chases after Broly with a Saiyan named Beats being trapped on the ship, forcing him to travel alongside him. Filling Beats in on what King Vegeta had done, Paragus states that he now resents the Saiyan race for casting his son out simply because of jealousy. With a mission in mind, Paragus plans on training Broly's incredible power so that one day he could claim vengeance on the king of all Saiyans. Upon nearly crashing on planet Vampa, Paragus and Beats are attacked by a Vampa beetle and are forced to take shelter. It's here that we learn that Beats isn't a fighter, nor has he even transformed into an Uzaru or a great ape as the form is referred to in the film. Paragus informs Beats about what great apes are capable of, and keep this in mind as we'll hear more about the transformation throughout the entire movie. Paragus and Beats eventually stumble upon Broly, and Beats states that the boy has a battle power of 920, which is higher than his own. The two Saiyans learn that Broly had transformed into a great ape in order to kill a Vampa beetle, much to Paragus' delight. With Broly found, the three attempt to escape planet Vampa, but learn that the floater was damaged upon arriving on the planet, and the three of them are stranded with only a small portion of food and water. Revealing how cold-hearted he is, Paragus kills Beats in order to preserve rations for he and Broly. I really like how the backstory of Broly was expanded upon in this opening for the film since we hardly got any of that in the original, and the relationship between Broly and Paragus was set up very early on, so that we could see the dynamic between the two throughout the entire movie. Before I move on though, was I the only one who didn't quite dig the title card for this movie? Something about the font just felt weird to me, particularly the way that Broly was displayed underneath the words Dragon Ball. From that point on, the story of Broly takes a backseat and we jump 5 years later to Bardock, who is headed towards planet Vegeta with his partner Leek. Turns out a large majority of the Saiyans were ordered to return to the planet by Frieza, which causes Bardock to have an uneasy feeling about the whole ordeal, and we all know that he was right to be doubtful of Frieza's good intentions, as the tyrant wants to exterminate all of the Saiyans before any legend of the Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan God could become a reality. I'm very sad that we didn't get to see Bardock with any of his original crew from the Father of Goku special, as I would have loved to see Tora, Fasha, Borgos, and Shugesh in Shintani's style, but on the bright side, we are introduced to the best character to come out of the Dragon Ball Minus storyline, Gine. They pronounce Gine's name as Gine in this movie when I've always pronounced it as Gine, so I'm going to refer to her as that since it just sounds better to me. With the introduction of Jine, we get to see a gentler side of Bardock's character that we've never seen before, and we're then introduced to Kakarot, who Bardock plans on sending to a native planet in secrecy where he can grow up peacefully. Much to Jine's disapproval, Bardock explains what Frieza plans on doing to Planet Vegeta, ultimately forcing Jine to give in as a mother and do what's best for her son. The two Saiyans wait until nightfall to send Kakarot away, and personally, I choked up during this scene. There was just something about hearing Kakarot cry within a Saiyan pod as Bardock, and particularly Jine, give their emotional goodbyes with that emotional score in the background of their son as he blasts off was very saddening to me as a longtime fan. When Jine shouted for Kakarot to never forget the two of them as she breaks down in tears, I almost let a tear loose because we all know that he does end up forgetting them. I want to know if any of you felt emotional during this scene. I felt terrible for Jine. I really want to see her return in some form in the future, whether she's shown in the afterlife or not, because she's a character who has great potential to be expanded upon, and she deserves to meet Goku at some point in his life. After this, we get to see the iconic shot of Frieza destroying Planet Vegeta with all the Saiyans we had seen thus far, powerless to do anything. We do, however, get to see Bardock attempt to stop the blast from destroying the planet, but he was destined to fail. Bardock's body disintegrates along with the Planet Vegeta, and we then see Frieza's scatter slowly drop down to zero, signifying that there was nothing left after his attack. Now, while this whole entire sequence is amazing, it's probably my biggest complaint with the entire movie. I don't mind the Dragon Ball Minus storyline, but for it to be considered canon, it sets up a whole lot of inconsistencies with what was already established in Dragon Ball, and personally, I don't think Bardock as a character was given justice, at least not entirely. In the past, we got to see the cold-hearted warrior side of Bardock, who was personally feared by Frieza, and I think him being the lone wolf attempting to stop Frieza's genocide blast was a proper end to the father of Goku. In this film, we get to see the gentler side of Bardock, and from face value, he seemed pretty bland, but if you have previous knowledge of the character like I do, you probably took it as more exposure to who Bardock was as an overall person, and we got to see the other side of the coin. The events in this movie fleshed out who he was, so I kinda needed both renditions of the character to fully appreciate this new one, you know? It's almost as if this version of Bardock was someone that I had seen before, rather than an entirely new character, which I don't think the movie was trying to go for, but I just needed that so I could appreciate him more. I would have loved to see this film have a longer runtime and have Bardock be expanded upon more, but I think it was smart not to cram the entire story of the Father of Goku special into this 20-minute flashback to Planet Vegeta's destruction. It was cool seeing him try to stop Frieza in this film as a nice homage, but it didn't feel earned like in the original. With Planet Vegeta destroyed, we cut to Prince Vegeta, Raditz, and Nappa, along with two random Saiyans who I assume died on a mission between now and Dragon Ball Z, who are all tricked into thinking that Planet Vegeta was destroyed by a meteor. We also get to hear Vegeta mention Tarble, so it's nice that he's still remembered. Broly catches a glimpse of Planet Vegeta's destruction as well, and we cut to Kakarot's pod hurtling through space towards planet Earth. Upon arriving on Earth, we see a counter on the bottom of the screen go up from age 737 to the current year, and we see a seamless transition to Goku as a kid, only for him to grow up to spar with Vegeta over a bunch of memorable moments throughout Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super. The transition was very memorable to me, and I felt giddy seeing all of Dragon Ball's history condensed into this quick sequence, and I personally thought that it was really cool. Now from this point on, we're sort of introduced to a couple of characters who appear throughout the film, particularly Whis, Bulma, and Beerus. With the current day taking place after the Tournament of Power, Goku's eyes on the multiverse have been opened up, and he plans on becoming even stronger than the levels he had reached in the tournament, but Vegeta is still pretty upset that Goku promised to revive Frieza in the first place so that he could help Universe 7 out. Vegeta's anger is proven correct when Trunks calls Bulma to tell her that a couple of Frieza soldiers stole 6 of the Dragon Balls under their noses by being weak enough to avoid detection. Deciding on finding the 7th Dragon Ball so Frieza can't grant whatever wish he desires, Bulma heads off with Whis, Goku, and Vegeta as Beerus is left to babysit Bulla. So for those who wanted to see Beerus face off against Broly, that isn't here sadly. Bulma reveals that she wanted to gather the Dragon Balls to grant a wish that would make her look 5 years younger than what she really is, which at this point in Dragon Ball I shouldn't find surprising since finding the Dragon Balls is such a common occurrence nowadays. Not only does Bulma want the Dragon Balls to look younger, but back with Frieza, we learn what he truly wants to wish for. Questioned by Kikuno and Berry Blue, Frieza does not strive for immortality, but rather wants to be 5 centimeters taller. I'm not sure what it was about the number 5 in this film, but both didn't want their physical appearance changes to be too noticeable, so they decided to use their wishes for something very insignificant. It was pretty funny for both characters, yeah, but the whole Dragon Ball subplot is just here to usher in Frieza arriving on Earth with his new soldiers. These new soldiers being Chile and Lemmo, who are sent off in search of new recruits for the Frieza Force in exchange for a reward, and the two eventually land on planet Vampa. It's here that they meet Paragus and Broly, who have been stranded on this planet for decades with extremely incredible battle powers. Taking the two Saiyans back to Frieza, we learn that Broly's tail has been removed because of how uncontrollable that he became upon transforming into a great ape, And we also learn that Paragus placed a collar around Broly that gives him a shock to keep him in line whenever he loses control. This collar serves the exact same purpose as the necklace and crown that Paragus placed around Broly's neck from the original Broly film, but rather than giving him a shock, that would control his entire mentality, so it's nice to see the idea coming back. After gaining their reward and noticing Broly's fear of the collar, Chilai and Lemon were sent off as Frieza questions if the two know about Planet Vegeta. Paragus does know about the fate of Planet Vegeta, but doesn't know that Frieza's the one behind it. Disappointed that he couldn't get his vengeance on King Vegeta, Frieza offers up a new idea that could benefit the both of them. Frieza informs Paragus that Prince Vegeta is still alive, so Paragus and Broly fully join the Frieza Force. We later learn that Broly keeps a Vampa Beast pellet around his waist because it has significant meaning behind it, and we also get to see Chilai confront Paragus about how harshly he treats his son, ending up with her stealing and destroying the remote connected to Broly's shock collar from Paragus. Becoming friends with Broly, Chilai and Lemo learned that the pellet around Broly's waist was the ear of a Vampa Beast named Ba, who became Broly's first friend. Broly would train with the beast at a young age and would gain its trust, but Paragus believed that the boy was just playing with the beast rather than training, so he shot the beast's ear off, causing Broly to lose its trust. In order to remember his friendship with Ba, he kept the ear as a pelt, and that's why he didn't want to take it off. This version of Broly is actually much more compassionate than his original counterpart, and we learn that he's actually quite the pacifist. Broly doesn't like fighting at all, and only does it because Paragus wants him to, but despite his father's commands, Broly still admires his father simply because he's his father. When I learned that Broly was somewhat of a pacifist in this film, my mind immediately connected him to Gohan, who also doesn't enjoy fighting. But I'll talk more about Gohan towards the end of the video since he's nowhere to be seen in this movie, and I know, that's probably going to anger a lot of you. Eventually, Goku and the others arrive in the Arctic just in time to confront Frieza's soldiers who were stealing the 7th Dragon Ball, but before our heroes could retrieve them all, Frieza and his army arrive on Earth to take all 7 of them away. It's here where Paragus and Broly encounter Vegeta and Goku for the first time, and thankfully, the writers decided to have Paragus and Broly have their minds set solely on Vegeta rather than Goku, and once Paragus sends Broly into battle, Vegeta is the first one to be attacked. I'm really glad that this movie took the time to diverge away from the original idea of Broly hating Goku, simply because he cried next to him as a baby. In fact, this film does everything in its power it can to avoid the event, as Vegeta and Broly are similar in age, with Goku being 5 years younger than the both of them. This movie deserves heavy praise simply for fixing Broly's character by changing this backstory to be more logical. Anyways, after attacking Vegeta, the remainder of the film is just one big action sequence that is broken down into tinier segments. The first major battle of the film focuses on Vegeta fighting Broly on his own, and the two of them are pretty even in their base form, but Broly even manages to keep up with Vegeta in his Super Saiyan form, which is a transformation that shocks Paragus since he still believes that the form is a myth. The battle seems fairly even until Vegeta unleashes a form that everyone has been waiting to see him use ever since Battle of Gods, as he transforms into a Super Saiyan God and quickly puts Broly down. Believing that Broly had reached his limit, Paragus falls to his knees with Frieza disappointed as Broly cannot transform into a Super Saiyan. Much to their luck, however, Broly awakens as Wrath State, which is a visually subtle transformation, but a pretty interesting one to say the least. Bulking Broly up to a Hulk-like size, the Saiyan's eyes become yellow as he loses control of his power and forgets who he is. In his Wrath State, Broly is capable of unleashing the power of a great ape without needing to transform, so in theory, it's very similar to that of a Super Saiyan 4, which is a form that is the combination of a controlled Uzaru state and the Super Saiyan transformation. Personally, I think this state is a pretty cool idea and could potentially open up the gateway to a canon Super Saiyan 4 form, but who knows if we'll ever get that one day. With the tide of battle now changing, Broly gains the upper hand against Vegeta, causing Goku to finally step into the battle. Now, while I love that Vegeta got a large part in taking on Broly, since we hardly ever get to see him take on the main villain of a movie, and I did want him to be the main hero of this film because he ties into Broly, I do think that the Goku vs. Broly fight is the best fight in the entire film, even when compared to the final fight. I don't know why, I just like the fast-paced action that isn't too complex like the final fight, and this fight was just right with me in terms of pace, visuals, and everything in between. It wasn't cluttered. We see Goku fight evenly in his base form against Broly, and we then see him transform into a Super Saiyan, and then a Super Saiyan God, but Goku then uses a pretty cool new technique called God Bind to paralyze Broly for a short period of time. This actually shocked me in theaters because throughout the fight, Goku could tell that Broly's heart wasn't entirely in the battle, and Goku even says that Broly can stop fighting if he wants to, which for Goku, you don't hear him want to try to stop a battle very often. Talking sense into Broly, telling him that he isn't evil like any other person that he's gone up against, we see flashbacks of Vegeta from the Saiyan saga, all of the Frieza transformations on Namek, all of Cell's transformations, and close-ups of Majin Buu's face as Goku explains to Broly that he's fought tough villains over the course of his life, but he could tell that Broly was not one of them. Goku's words seem to be getting through to Broly, but the Saiyan ultimately breaks free and begins to beat Goku down. Watching from the sidelines, Chilai and Limo point out that Broly isn't acting like himself, and is only fighting because Paragus is making him, as Vegeta keeps Bulma safe alongside Whis, while Broly mercilessly slams Goku into the ground and rubs his head through an ice wall. The battle heats up as Kikono takes Frieza's Dragon Balls and plans to take the spaceship to safety. With Broly getting bigger and angrier with each passing second, Piccolo overhears the battle between Goku and Broly. The Namekian speaks with his friend and gives Goku an idea if the battle continues to get worse, so Goku gets to his feet and transforms into a Super Saiyan Blue and evens out the battle against Broly. Despite the two keeping up with each other, lava begins to erupt from the ground and Paragus realizes that maybe King Vegeta was right. Broly truly was a danger to them all. Frieza recalls killing Krillin on planet Namek, and thus he betrays Paragus by shooting a beam through his heart, getting Broly's attention and causing him to think Paragus died to a stray beam, which I admit was pretty hilarious. Frieza watches as the Saiyan transforms into a Super Saiyan for the first time, angered at the loss of his father. Now that I think about it, even though Paragus was kind of a dick, it's kind of sad the way that he went out. He spent his entire life feeling vengeful for the Saiyan race because they cast out his son, and in his final moments he realized that they were actually right, and that's just kind of sad to me for some reason. As Broly's power tremendously increases from a Super Saiyan transformation, Vegeta rejoins the battle alongside Goku as he transforms into a Super Saiyan Blue and the two fire a Gallic Kamehameha towards Broly, who continues trying to attack the two of them. Realizing that Broly is too powerful for the both of them, the two Saiyans lead Broly straight into Frieza as Goku grabs hold of Vegeta and instant transmissions away, leaving Frieza alone to deal with the mindless monster. Crash landing next to Piccolo on the other side of the planet, Goku informs Vegeta about the fusion dance and teaches Vegeta the technique with Piccolo, and Bear said he has to do the dance. Vegeta reluctantly agrees and the two attempt to fuse, only to turn into Viku. Having to wait for a full half an hour, we see Frieza transform into his golden form and face Broly, only for the two Saiyans to fail fusion yet again and wait for another 30 minutes. After their skinny fusion disappears, Goku and Vegeta successfully fuse into a new fusion. Taking the time to think of a name since Vegeta was already taken by the Potara fusion, Gogeta is ultimately decided before he returns to the battlefield, and it's pretty cool that this is the first time we get to see Gogeta in his base form. Now, I have a few things to say. First, it's pretty amazing how Golden Frieza was capable of handling Super Saiyan Broly for a full hour. That guy sure can take a pummeling. But like Dragon Ball Minus, another thing that I wasn't a big fan of was this whole fusion sequence. I thought it was pretty humorous that the two kept failing because of tiny slip-ups, and it was pretty funny seeing Frieza get beat down because of their mistakes, but the animation of Naoki Tate doesn't really look that well when characters are just standing around. His animation style fits action much more, and I think the whole fusion sequence could have been extended just a tiny bit more so we could have seen Frieza get beat down longer. Aside from the animation sticking out to me in this specific part and the quickness of the fusions, I thought the sequence was fine. But once Gogeta emerges onto the battlefield, shocking Frieza, we then see Broly attempt to attack Whis, but utterly fail. I thought this was going to be a fully fledged fight, but unfortunately, Gogeta steps in before Whis can counterattack Broly, so we'll have to wait and see Whis fight seriously another day. It's at this point where we see Gogeta confront Broly with the fused warrior transforming into a Super Saiyan. The two warriors are so intensely powerful that they actually break the fabric of reality for a short period of time, as Broly transforms into his legendary Super Saiyan form, and Gogeta jumps straight into Super Saiyan Blue. Battling throughout reality and jumping around galaxies, the two eventually end up back in their own world, as Gogeta proves to be too much for Broly. Chilai and Lemma realize that there's only one way that this battle can end, and that's by Gogeta ultimately killing Broly, so they steal Frieza's Dragon Balls in an attempt to rescue their friend. Now at this point, I actually thought the story took a great risk, and it really paid off for me. During the fight between Broly and Gogeta, I realized that Gogeta was portrayed as the villain, and we were supposed to feel terror for Broly, thinking that he might actually die. The entire movie we had learned about Broly's character, his pacifism, and his relationship with Paragus, his newfound friends, and the characters on planet Vampa, so we grew to like this version of Broly. The perspective of this entire film was flipped around so we could see things from the other side, where our heroes are being portrayed as the bad guys for once. It was a very weird feeling for me, but I was getting so invested in the fight between these two that I was caught off guard when Chilai summoned Shenron. With the sky turning dark, the battle between Gogeta and Broly escalates as the fused warrior attempts to end the battle with a transcended God Kamehameha. This could very well be the first time that a fusion actually wins a battle, since we all know how much they like to defuse before they actually win. But before the Kamehameha can make contact with Broly, he's wished away by Chilai and returns back to planet Vampa in his base form. Caught off guard, Gogeta watches as Shenron disappears back into the Dragon Balls, and they all disperse in 7 different directions. I thought I'd just point this out, but I personally like the shot of Gogeta staring up into the sky, with all the Dragon Balls traveling in different directions. I just thought it looked really cool. Chilai and Lemma escape, now fugitives of the Frieza Force, and they set course for planet Vampa to regroup with Broly as Golden Frieza attempts to shoot them down. Gogeta stops Frieza, and the tyrant reverts back into his final form, only to promise that he'll return before he rushes off. Even though Gogeta didn't really end the battle against Broly, he still technically won against his opponent, which I think is pretty cool. Does anyone else think that it's weird that we saw more of Gogeta in this fight, despite his fusion only lasting half an hour, when we saw less of Vegito in Dragon Ball Super, despite the Pataras lasting a full hour? Oh well, Gogeta definitely got me hype, and I'm so grateful that he's finally canon. 3 days would pass as Broly, Cheelai, and Lemon begin their new life on planet Vampa, but are caught off guard when Goku travels to them through instant transmission. Proving himself to be a friend, Goku gives Broly some capsules that Bulma made for him, and Goku promises to visit the three every so often in exchange for some sparring matches with Broly. Broly seems delighted to get a new friend, and Cheelai asks Goku for his name. Goku tells her, but then looks at Broly, telling him that he can call him Kakarot. With his body fading away, the logo for Dragon Ball Super Broly flashes on screen, and the movie ends. First off, holy hell, that final line of Goku giving Broly permission to call him Kakarot gave me chills. If you were to ask my 10-year-old self that there was potential for Goku and a canonized version of Broly becoming sparring partners and even buddies, he would have thought you were crazy. But this is the reality that we live in now, everyone. I'm super pumped that Broly has potential to become a good guy, which I never thought I'd say. This version of Broly, I want to see more of. I want to see his interactions with Goku, Vegeta, and the main cast in future story arcs. The way this movie fixed his character by having his backstory tie into Vegeta and allowing Broly to grow up in a way similar to Goku allowed me to see his character in a new light. It was ingenious for the movie to be told from the perspective of him, and I thought it was really weird seeing Gogeta as a potential threat for Broly's well-being. Everything about this film fixed Broly as a character and gave Dragon Ball Super more credibility in the eyes of the public, and that's all I wanted. The animation style is much more beloved than the style that we got in Super, and not to trash Yamamuro's designs or anything since they're all still pretty great, but I would honestly love if Shintani's style stuck around for when a new Dragon Ball series comes out, because we've had Yamamuro's designs for quite some time. Now earlier I talked about Gohan slightly and I mentioned that I would talk about him at the end of the video, so now that we're here and we know the entirety of this movie, wouldn't it be really cool if Broly became Gohan's sparring partner? I feel like the two of them could get along thanks to their pacifism, and considering that the both of them have unlimited potential to get stronger, they could constantly bounce over each other like rivals similar to Goku and Vegeta. Personally, I think the quartet of Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and Broly would cement the Z-Fighters as the strongest team throughout the entire multiverse, but there's an infinite amount of possibilities that were opened up thanks to this film. The story has to be expanded upon in Toriyama's manga, and I hope whenever a new series comes around, we get to see more of Broly in Shintani's style. Anyways everyone, my rating on this movie still sits at an 8.9 out of 10. It's spectacular as a Dragon Ball film, and I think the structure of it all fits very well as a basic movie. What did you guys think of this movie? What were your favorite moments, and what were your favorite fights? Let me know down in the comments so we can talk about it. Thank you all so very much for watching, and if you want to hear more of my Dragon Ball content, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll make another video talking about this movie very soon, now that I've seen it, but that video will be a surprise. Until then, stay tuned for it. See you guys later.